Hey everybody, welcome to today's virtual employment workshop from InVets. Today we're featuring Zimmer Biomet as our employment partner. So first, my name is Wes Wood. I'm the Executive Director of InVets. I'll go through the agenda real quick. Today's primary topic is going to be building a better resume from Blaine Zimmerman, our Director of Veteran Engagement here. Then we'll talk a little bit about Indiana in general, about our program, and then we will switch over to Juan, who's a veteran recruiter from Zimmer Biomet. So excited to get to these different topics. Just if you haven't joined us before, quick kind of general rules. We've got a chat, so be sure to check that out. Feel free to pose any questions throughout the event. We'll keep tabs on those. We may answer them right then and there, or we may circle back to them at the end. If you're looking for notes or anything like that, we are going to be sending out a recording of this to everybody who registered after the event, so you don't have to worry about missing anything on that. So thank you for joining us. And first off, I will turn it over to Blaine.
Thanks, Wes. So on behalf of the veteran engagement team, I wanted to welcome everybody. My team was going to be in the chat room answering any questions you guys might have throughout, and then posting any links or contact information as it comes up. So if you see stuff from Jerry Young, Jeremy Higgins, or Miranda, that's all good information for you. Click on those links, check everything out. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them in the chat and we will answer them appropriately. So as Wes said, I'm the Director of Veteran Engagement. I spent 6 years on active duty and transitioned in 2014 as an E5. I was stationed both at Fort Bliss in Texas, where I deployed to Iraq, and Fort Drum in New York, where I deployed to Afghanistan. Couldn't have had different weather during my time while I was in. Since I transitioned, I joined the National Guard, and since then I have earned my MBA from Butler University and took a commission within the Guard, and I'm now a platoon leader for an infantry unit here in Indiana. So we're going to talk a little bit about building a better resume and improving your resume skills so that you're opening that door to the interview room. What you'll probably hear me talk about quite a bit today is the fact that your resume is essentially a key to that interview door. That is the main thing that's going to get you in front of the employer, and it's the main thing that could stop you from getting in front of an employer. After that, I'm going to dive a little bit more into benefits about moving to Indiana, in case some of you are joining us from other states, and as well as what exactly we do and kind of how to create a profile and how our process works before handing the reins back over to Wes and Juan for Zimmer Biomet. So to talk about building a resume, I think that the best thing that I can do is just show you my resume. By no means is this perfect, or is it the end-all be-all of resumes, but it is a good example based on a lot of different research I've done of what you can do to improve your resume. So I'm going to share my screen. And this is my actual resume. So few things we want to talk about, do's and don'ts, right? So you want your contact information to be at the very top of the resume. If it's hard for an employer to find your phone number or your email address and they want to call you or email you to set up an interview, if they're having to search for that thing, they're not going to call you. That's going to be a quick resume in the trash. So you want your contact info to be at the top, and you want to make sure that your email is a personal, professional email. What I mean by that is don't use your .mil account. Use your email account and get rid of your I love the Steelers at Hotmail or Roger Rabbit at Gmail. Like, you want it to be some variation of your name. You want to keep it professional. And I would suggest using a platform like a Gmail. If you're using like an old AOL address, or maybe even, Hotmail, sometimes that can turn an employer off just because it doesn't look like you're keeping up to date on the newest technology. So the other thing is you want everything to look professional on your resume. You don't want to overwhelm the people with any too much italicized size things, any really crazy colors, any changes, like massive changes as you go through. You want it to make sense. You want it to have sections, more than likely chronologically, depending on the role that you're applying for. So you just want to make sure that everything stays professional. It's really easy to read. You probably don't want to put pictures in unless you're applying for a creative role. A lot of times with applicant tracking systems, if you put pictures or weird symbols, things like that, that can actually get it kicked out of an applicant tracking system, which I'll talk about here a little bit more in a little bit. So at the top, you want to have your statement, your professional statement, executive summary, some might call it. And it's basically a one sentence why you're the best fit for this job. You want to be able to gather all of the relevant data that makes you stand out from everyone else about your background and why you are great for this role. You want this to be different per position you're applying for, not just per company. There's going to be companies that you apply for 2 to 3 different positions, and there's going to be times where you may end up applying to 25 to 50 different positions. You don't want this to just be the same thing over and over. So I change mine pretty consistently. This is the one that I actually used that I turned into Wes for this job. And so if I were to go for a different role, I would completely change this, being very specific to whatever role that I was applying for. So as you go back down, you want everything. I prefer bulleted lists. I know that a lot of people may like paragraphs. Once again, it just depends on the type of role that you're applying for. Bulleted lists are a little bit easier to read. And you can see that all of my headers are very consistent. The dates are easy to read. The titles are in green and companies are in a gray. Everything stays consistent throughout. And so it's real easy for the eyes to just kind of move through. A lot of the times when somebody's reading a resume, they're going to spend less than a minute looking through it. They're going to make sure that it kind of pops, it makes sense to them, and that you have the things that they're looking for. And that's what's going to open that door to the interview room. So you want to have quantitative as well as qualitative data. So what I mean by that is you want to make sure that you're putting in specific numbers. If you have ever written an NCOER or an OER or any sort of review in the military, you'll know what I'm talking about, because it's really important in those reviews to put in specific like budget numbers or numbers of people trained, things like that. And we'll dive a little bit more into that when we get down to my military experience. So as we go through, the other thing, that don't be afraid if you have a gap in your resume. So you can see I had a gap between May and August of 2016. I knew I was leaving the former company. I had some National Guard training, decided to spend some time with my family in the middle. I didn't put in the little bit of contract work I did in there, just wasn't relevant for this resume. And the gap is really easily explainable, especially with what we have going on right now with COVID-19. People are being laid off. Companies are closing down. Like, gaps are explainable. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, but it's also something you don't want to lie about. So the number one thing that can get you fired quicker than anything is lying on your resume and being found out. So you definitely don't want to do that. So let's talk about military experience. So everybody's resume is going to look a little bit different from a military experience standpoint. I only have one section left on my resume, mostly because I've been in the workforce for about 6 years, and I don't go through every role I had in the military because, frankly, the fact that I was a Bradley driver in El Paso, Texas doesn't really do anything for what I'm trying to do with my career right now. So what I did was I narrowed it down to one specific role that I had in the military. I tied in a couple other metrics, and that's where I got training and development manager. What does that mean? So I was the battalion schools NCO, but a organization is not going to know what a battalion is, what a schools NCO is, probably aren't going to know what an NCO is. So I need to be able to translate that into organizational speak. You have to remember, it's not the organization's job to translate your resume to their language. It's your job to translate your military skills to civilian skills. So you want to avoid your big acronyms. You want to avoid military terms that may make complete sense to you, but somebody who's never spent a day in the military is not going to know what it means. So I took schools NCO. I thought, what did I do as a schools NCO? Well, I made sure that everybody had the appropriate training to be considered deployable. And I made sure that everybody got to their professional development courses in order to fulfill their career. Training, development, manager, bang, nailed it. So it's really easy for a civilian employer to look at that and have a pretty good idea of what a training and development manager would do. A lot of larger organizations have these types of roles, so it makes sense. It's translatable. And then you can see my qualitative information. 800 person organization, that's a battalion. $500,000 budget, that's about the budget I had to be able to send people to schools throughout the year. And then looking at the one thing that I thought made me stand out from anyone else that may be applying from the military is the new project management program. Jumped from 65 to 94%. Those numbers kind of jump off of a page for an interviewer. They were like, wow, you improved it by 30%. How'd you do that? Well, what this doesn't say is when I became the school's NCO, we had just redeployed from Afghanistan. People PCS'd, people ATS'd. The natural attrition of a unit happened. And so we had to get all of those people that left that were trained in things. We had to get new people trained in those things. So I had to create a project management program that made sense so we could find the people that were available for schools, that were qualified for schools, and get them to those so that we could be back to being a deployable unit again. It's a really great thing to be able to bring up and talk about in an interview. And it's a way to showcase some of my skills. And so those are the types of things you want to think about when you're putting in information. You don't want over flowery information. You don't want things that, maybe your SFL TAP Center says this is a good thing to put in. That's great. But if everyone's putting the same information in, you're not finding that thing that makes you unique. So what if you're just an infantry team leader? Find one or two things that you did as an infantry team leader that none of the other team leaders were doing that made you stand out. Those are the types of things that make you more hireable and help you open that door into the interview room. So you want to make sure that you put keywords in. And one of the ways that you can do that is by adding a skills section. So most companies, and I know Juan will talk about this a little bit, have applicant tracking systems. Those tracking systems in some cases are a little bit too good. What I mean by that is they'll go above and beyond and filter out way more people than even the people hiring want them to filter out. So you want to make sure that you're catching those things that those applicant tracking systems are looking for. Those are the keywords that are in the job description, as well as like anything that you may read as far as requirements, skill sets that they're looking for and things like that. You don't want to lie. Once again, you want to try to get them in your previous work experience as much as possible, but there's no shame in adding a skills section to be able to add some of those keywords. From the education standpoint, I only have one of my military schools in there just because it was the most recent, but a lot of people, there's different schools of thought on this as well. Some people have it at the top, some people have it at the bottom. From what I understand from the research I've done on it is the more time you've spent in the workforce, that means your resume should be on the bottom, your education should be on the bottom. Whereas if you're brand new to the workforce, maybe you're a E4, E5 coming right out of the Army, you just graduated with your bachelor's degree or master's degree, you want to put that at the top because it also shows them that you have great time management skills because you were in the Army while also finishing a degree. The last thing I want to talk about is personal associations. So this is your clubs, your nonprofits, your volunteer work, things like that. A lot of people don't know if they should share too much on that side. Do it. It helps you stand out a little bit, and it gives you the opportunity to highlight some skills that maybe you weren't able to highlight in your resume in the work section. A really good example of that is, I know we might have some spouses that are here. If you were in the FRG and say you were the budget manager for the FRG for the company, and for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, the FRG is, one second. I'm really sorry. My dog is barking. That's the great benefit of working from home. So the FRG is the Family Readiness Group, but that's a really good thing that you can put on your resume. Shows maybe your project management skills, your budget management skills, things like that. Those are the types of things that you want to be able to put in, and a really good reason why you want to put those professional associations on there. So if you have some experience in a nonprofit or volunteering, go ahead and put those on there. It doesn't show that you're stretched too thin. It shows that you have additional skills and qualifications that the company's looking for. So one extra caveat, we do have resources to help build resumes for people if you create profiles and come work with us. The other thing that we have at our disposal, for lack of a better term, is a company called Operation Job Ready Vets. They're a great partner of ours. They're here in Indianapolis, and they do a full week workshop for resume building, interview skills. Even at the end, you have the ability, if you can't afford or don't have a suit, you can get a suit. You can get a free haircut, beard trim, things like that. It's a great organization, and it's something that we have that we can send people to completely free. And we'd love to work with you. So if you have any questions or any other things that you would like to look at on your resume, feel free to shoot them over to us. We'll look at them and we'll help you fix those. So let's get into what we do. All right. So can you all still see the slides? Somebody in the chat, let me know if you can still see the slides. I'll start it over.
I can't, Blaine.
Okay, I'm just there we go. We're back. All right. So about why Indiana and why InVets. So our company is 100% veteran run. I talked a little bit about our veteran engagement team, Jerry Young, Jeremy Higgins, both Army vets. Jerry actually had some time in the Air Force as well. As I've said, I'm an Army vet. Wes is an Army vet. Our employer partnership manager, he is a Marine vet. And Miranda, our marketing manager, is also an Army vet. So we provide that digital connection point, and I'll walk through kind of what that means and show you some examples from the website here in a minute. But we have over 150 employment partners and over 85,000 open positions. The reason we have a little asterisk there is that was pre-COVID numbers. There are some folks that have open positions but are on hiring freezes and things like that, but we still do have quite a few employers that are hiring. Our main 4 industries are healthcare, logistics, manufacturing, and technology. Doesn't mean those are the only industries we work with. It's just those are main 4 that we have placed the most amount of veterans in. And then we partner with lots of local and national veteran organizations, such as Operation Job Ready Vets, the Department of Workforce Development, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and multiple other national organizations as well. So this is our new homepage, and we're real excited about this. We just recently had a press release go out by the state of Indiana that talked about our new website. It is a massive upgrade. For those of you that have seen the old site and now have seen the new site, then you'll know what I'm talking about. I know that I can see a few of you in the chat, like Adam Getz. He's seen both sites, and he can attest to how much of a difference it has been from the old to the new site. So this is our new homepage, and right here where these gold eagles are, that's going to be our backyard. Literally, our office is right on the other side of those eagles. So what you do is when you go up to that top right and click on Get Started, and then you'll sign up and create a profile. It has become much easier to create a profile. In the past, you needed to have a resume and a DD-214 and all of these other things. Now you need name, email address, phone number, address. That's it. It takes 2 to 3 minutes to create a profile. And then from there, you can start to improve it over time by adding a headshot, adding a resume, adding your background, things like that. Then you can go in and check out careers. We're still updating the employment side of the house on there. Some of our employers are working really diligently to get their open jobs on the site and improve their logos and things like that. So we're slowly getting more on there every day. So when you get on there, check out what our open jobs are on. Check out, and you can apply straight from our website, and it goes straight to the application page for that company. From there, let us know you applied. We have relationships with all of our employer partners, and we'll reach out to them directly on your behalf to make sure that you're getting a leg up on everybody else whose resume is just in the giant pile. So the other thing I failed to mention is when you sign up, you're probably getting a call from either me, Jerry, or Jeremy within a day. We're pretty quick to call people and find out what their goals are, find out what they want to do, what part of the state do you want to move in, things like that. So on the careers page, so this is an example of Allison Transmission. So when you click on Allison's logo, you're going to come to their profile. You're going to be able to read information about the company, open positions, things like that. You'll have tons of information at your disposal. And as I said before, you'll be able to apply to a job straight from our website. So if you want, you can also look at pathways in specific industries. So this example is technology. So what you can do is you can see what the average starting salary in the industry is, what you could potentially make over 3 to 5 years, and then what types of job titles are usually in that career path. So some of you may be coming out of the military and like, I don't even know what industry I want to work for. I know I like computers, but I don't know what that means, or I don't know how I can get started in that industry. So this gives you some of those insights. Then it talks about 3 specific career paths within that industry. So we show sales, development, and data science, and then some companies. As you click into those, it'll give you the specific companies that we work with that work in those sectors that have those specific types of jobs. So Indiana, key benefits for the state of Indiana. For those of you that are visiting from outside that are thinking about moving to Indiana when you get out of the service, we have college tuition that is free or discounted for children of disabled veterans that join from Indiana or have lived in Indiana for the last 5 years. And then it's also free for vets who earned the Purple Heart Medal. So really great benefit, for children of vets that earned the Purple Heart Medal. Really great benefits on the college side, because I know I've got 3 boys and I don't know if I have enough time to save up enough tuition for 3 kids. So this is something that I'm definitely going to use. I know Jerry uses this for his daughter. It's a really big benefit that it's really beneficial to have. Indiana House Bill 1010. So this was passed last August, and you can see in the background, Wes is in the back right. The governor signed this bill into law that's going to make military retirement pay state tax-free. It's going to go into effect over the next 3 years. So basically, there'll be a percentage that's taken off every year until January 1st, 2022, when all military retirement is state tax-free. It's a huge leg up for the state of Indiana. It helps us kind of compete, if you will, against some of those other states that already have these types of things in order. And it really shows our commitment to wanting to help veterans as they transition out of the military. We also have property tax deductions based on your disability status and which wars you fought in and property value, things like that. And then we have hunting and fishing licenses, which I know Jerry loves talking about, because every dollar that you save from hunting and fishing licenses means another dollar that you can spend on hunting and fishing gear. So I know that there's a huge benefit to being able to have those hunting and fishing licenses for free. And then you can just reinvest that back into your skill set so you have more arrows in your quiver. So let's talk about some specific communities. So we break Indiana down into 5 sections, and they're all very diverse from multiple different ways, right? So all 5 sections have large cities, and then they also, if you drive 20 minutes away, you can be in the suburbs, and then you can also be out in the farmland. So you want to live in the city and work on a farm, you can do that. If you want to live on a farm but work in the city, same thing. So it's got just great economic and cultural diversity throughout the state, no matter where you want to live. And we'll kind of dive into where these regions are. So Northwest, talking what a lot of people around here call the region. It's up by Chicago, a lot of manufacturing type jobs up there. And of course, if you were to work in Chicago, an easy commute back into Indiana. And then of course, tons of access to the Cubs and the Bulls and whatever the case may be. It's only, if you lived up there, you only have about a 2.5 hour drive to Indianapolis. And of course, Chicago is right across the border. Northeast region, Fort Wayne's there. That's the 2nd largest city in Indiana. A lot of people don't know that. It's a really interesting city. A lot of insurance type jobs are up there. Relatively close to like Toledo. Detroit is only probably about 3.5 hours from there. And then Indianapolis is only about 1.5 hours. When you're up there, relatively flat, even though Detroit's considered the summit city, or sorry, not Detroit, Fort Wayne's considered the summit city. I've been there quite a few times. My in-laws live there, not super hilly. There aren't a lot of summits there. There is a Purdue Fort Wayne campus there as far as education goes, as well. Multiple other small private schools like Huntington University and St. Joseph's University. So That's the Northeast. Central, that's Indianapolis. Obviously, you're going to have the largest amount of things around Indianapolis just because it's our state capital. We've got professional sports. We've got minor league sports. We've got the Indy 500. We have Butler University, IUPUI, tons of jobs, lots of ranging from professional to manufacturing, hourly to salary, a lot of things to do, a lot of places within an hour or two drive. If you're going to go on vacation, there are multiple places that are within a day's drive of Indianapolis. It's a really great place to live. I live there myself, and there's just so many things I could talk great about Indianapolis, but I don't want to spend too much time on one region. Southeast region, down by Cincinnati/Louisville. So Louisville's straight down 65, Cincinnati's roughly straight east on 74. So you've got casinos down there, you've got a speedway down there, and this is where you're getting into the hilly part of the state. You're going to have a lot more outdoor activities. There's a lot of state parks down there. If you're into hiking, if you're into hunting, you're into fishing, things like that, the Southeast region's a really good spot. And then finally, the Southwest region, heading towards Evansville, heading out towards St. Louis. So that's where, once again, hilly, you've got a lot of state parks, Brown County. I believe Bloomington's considered Southwest. And then we have Crane Naval Surface Warfare Station, which is, oddly enough, the second largest naval facility in the United States and couldn't be further from an ocean. So there's a lot of cool stuff down there. Wes is from Evansville, so I'm sure he can speak to it much better than I can. But once again, lots of state parks, lots of outdoor activities, and then the minor league baseball team. So that covers everything in a nutshell, and I tried to go very rapidly. I wanted to give everybody about a 10,000 foot view because I want to make sure that we give Juan and Wes as much time as possible to talk about the awesome opportunities at Zimmer Biomet. It's a really cool company. I'm really excited to see what they have. And once again, I saw Jerry posted all of our LinkedIn stuff on there. Jump on LinkedIn, connect with me. Love to talk to you about what your goals are and how we can help. And then if you need any help with resumes or anything like that, feel free to reach out. We're here for you. And from here, I'll turn it over to Wes and Juan.
All right. Thanks, Blaine. Let's see. Let me just going to go ahead and get rid of this, actually. There we go. I guess a little bit bigger here. So, hey, Juan, appreciate you joining us here. For everybody listening in, I think one of the things that really helps us help you really is the vast network of companies that we work with, right? You know, Blaine told you kind of the short background of each of our employees. We're a bunch of vets. And while we deal with this stuff on a daily basis, we don't do as much hiring as our employers do on a daily basis. So it's good to hear from them directly and not just through us. So we're excited to have Juan join us here from Zimmer Biomet. So Juan, you're a Marine Corps veteran, correct?
Yes. I just a little introduction for myself. This week marks 21 years that I went to boot camp. I actually retired with a 21-year retirement from the Marine Corps. So I'm very happy that that time finally came. It was great years, and getting this opportunity that I got with Zimmer now, my job, my role, even though I was a recruiter in the Marine Corps, I recruited for 7 years. I really do and hoorah to you too back there, Jerry. But you know, I really do. It was a very tough duty being on recruiting duty for those of us that have been on it. And when I got given the opportunity to help veterans find employment, especially with Zimmer Biomet, it was a great opportunity for me. So that goes into kind of a little bit of my role. When I was told you're going to be helping find veterans for Zimmer Biomet, they're in Warsaw, I thought, that's Poland? Like, I didn't know where Warsaw was. I didn't know anything about Indiana. I'm from Texas. Okay, I live in Texas. It was the last thing that I knew. But one of the things that I came to know a lot about Zimmer when I first came on board, and this is where I think it's very beneficial, is they're really making a push to hire veteran talent, especially not just in Indiana. I mean, especially in Indiana, but around the country as well. And one of the things that I've been given the opportunity is that with Zimmer, I really don't have any roles that I can't recruit for. There's no roles that I cannot assist vets with. So a lot of what I do with Zimmer Biomet is I help just as the gentleman we're doing earlier. Okay, one of the things that I do is like Blaine was talking about the resume review. I look at the resumes of all the candidates that come on. I've looked at hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes. A lot of what he was saying is true. When I'm looking at resumes, especially looking for Zimmer, I mean, you have to know what a company is. Okay, what is it that we do? And I'll explain it because that's something that I had to learn as to what we do. Okay, we're a medical device manufacturer. Okay, we specialize in orthopedic devices. We are one of the largest manufacturers in the world. Okay, our headquarters is in Warsaw, Indiana, near Fort Wayne, northern part of Indiana. Okay, so a lot of times when I have veterans apply, they see the name, they recognize the name, but they don't know what we do. And one of the things that I notice on the resumes is that you need to tailor it to the company that you're trying to apply for, especially if you're coming in for one of my positions that you're applying for. Now, one of the things in my specific role that I do is I help veterans here, such as InVets is doing right now when they're talking about resume review, is I go through the job description, because the ATS system that we have, it is very good at picking out keywords, just like was being said by Blaine and explaining to us. Okay, it is really good at it, but some people fall through the cracks, and that's where it's important to when you are writing your resume, to show your experience to not just in civilian world, but also in the military. And that's where a person such as myself, with 21 years working in multiple roles, both officer and enlisted, I provide that assistance to the hiring manager. Because ultimately the hiring manager is only going to look at that application, like it was said earlier, for a minute or two. They're only going to look at that resume, especially if it's something more than 2 pages. I am not bothering with anything more than 2 pages. Okay, I am looking, because I only have certain amount of time, certain amount of candidates that I'm working with to put on in front of the hiring manager. Okay, so right now, currently for me, my job is to hire veterans, to get veterans hired. I am not on a quota. I don't have to meet a certain number of candidates coming in. So everybody that's on here, I know my contact information will be available. If there's positions that you are interested in, please feel free to contact. Use that military recruiter, because that's their role. That's their role, is to help get veterans in, not just whether it's Zimmer or anyone else. Use that military experience that you have. Sometimes when, say, for example, I'll use this as a skill that a lot of veterans don't take into account, is that you have a lot of manufacturing and warehouse experience that you don't utilize. A lot of us get Lean Six Sigma certifications that we get, and we don't put that up. Those things that I'm looking for. We have positions specifically in Zimmer that are asking for people with either a green belt or a black belt in Lean Six Sigma. Okay, and that's just an example of some of the certifications that are coming through. So when I'm doing a review, when I write up, we call it a sizzle page, is what I call it. It's where I'm describing your experience to the hiring manager, whether it's your civilian experience, and a lot of it is focused on your military experience, how it relates to the Zimmer position that you are applying for. One of the things that was talked about earlier is if you're in E4, you do have some management experience, but also be cognizant that you may not have such a director experience or a VP position. So also be realistic about the positions that you're applying for. That also comes into compensation. That was another thing that was spoken about earlier. Okay, do your research on the compensation. A lot of times I can give you a ballpark figure as to what that compensation is going to be, not exact compensation. That's not information that is privy to me. It's the hiring manager. I simply get ranges as to what's going on. So if you're expecting to make the same exact that you were making in the military, okay, please be aware that not all the positions that you're applying for are going to be making that. And those are some of the challenges that I see on resumes that are coming in from veterans. Another thing that I notice is the conduct of an interview. When I'm speaking to a veteran, and it's candidates down the line, but predominantly with veterans, we tend to be a little bit more hard-headed than other people. Okay, I had issues coming in, but I had to change my approach. I had to be flexible. Okay, reason why I say that is because when you're talking to a hiring manager, the hiring manager is there seeing if you're qualified for the position. When they look at the resume, they look at your qualifications. That's what I look at. First and foremost, are you qualified for this position or not? Can I call you? Can I email you? please keep an update current email and keep a current phone number. A lot of times people do email, but I call, apply for something, understand that people are going to be calling, answer your messages. Sometimes I will send text messages too. I hate using text messages. I'd rather do a phone call or an email. So please keep that current. With Zimmer, some of the things that I have found out is that translating that military experience into a manufacturing environment, especially a medical, is difficult. There is not a lot of veterans that have had, well, first of all, working in manufacturing, producing anything, okay? Some of us do. I used to work in aviation. We used to manufacture things, but it was aviation, not necessarily medical. So how do I translate those skills that I have gotten in the military to a medical environment or a medical production manufacturing environment? How do I translate those skills? Obviously, InVets helps you do that. And if you are fortunate enough to the company that you're applying for has a veteran candidate or veteran recruiter such as myself, we can certainly help you with those skills. A lot of what I do is I prep you for the interview that I'm going to give you. That's one of the things that I do. So before we even start the interview, I look at your resume. I look at how you speak. I give you some of the things that'll help you when you're talking to the hiring manager. Certain little hints. We used to call it, we used to stomp our foot, the foot stomper comments. Hey, you might want to know this. You might want to know that. And the reason why I do that is because I have a certain passion where I'm looking to get veterans hired. I don't get anything extra for getting any veterans hired. Obviously, my job depends on getting veterans hired, but I don't get paid any commission on any of those hires. For me, ultimately, is getting a veteran a good career, especially there in the Warsaw area, especially in Indiana for Zimmer. I think Zimmer is a great company. And we're not just located in Indiana, we're located in Ohio, all over the Midwest, California, Texas, we're down in Florida. And a couple of the other things is study the company that you are trying to apply for. When you're talking to me, know what my product line is. Okay, know, and the reason why that's important is because opportunities become available at certain different arenas. I hired an individual in Tennessee, for example, for Zimmer Biomet. This individual used to do electronics in the Air Force. Okay, I used to be avionics. I used to do electronics in the Marine Corps. So part of that, I knew what this person's skill set was. So I ended up making him a robotics technician, and I was able to get him into that position. And one of the things that he knew, and he listened to what I was telling him, is know the product line, know the robot that we're working on, know how it's manufactured, know where it works at. So, by talking to him, when I did my interview, he was fully aware of that production line. He was fully aware of the robot itself. He was fully aware of any initiatives that were coming up. So when I did my write-up, I was able to talk about his knowledge and experience that he had in regards to that field. So about a week later, he called me and says, I got the job, and he never did robotics, but now he's fixing robots down in Tennessee because we were able to translate his military experience to something that they do at Zimmer. So that's the one quality that I can tell you about Zimmer is that they're really happy, or not happy, but they really encourage, I guess it's a better word to say. They really encourage veterans to express the talent that they have, the skills that they have, what they've learned in the military, whether it's a leadership or a technical skill. Because I am not the type of person that feels that veterans can kind of get keyholed into certain roles. I feel a veteran can fill any position. That's my goal, is to get veterans into any position that we have advertised, that we have available. Okay, so and I know I spoke a little bit and ranted about a little bit about my role, but the reason why I'm saying this to everybody that's on this call is because I'm a resource that is available to everybody that's here and all vets, that are applying for Zimmer. I don't talk to all the vets, but whatever vets come to me, I can tell you some of the things that I do to help you succeed, to help you get through, get that interview with the hiring manager, and then follow on steps. I had another candidate who had a second interview and wanted some guidance on it. Okay, and I called and we talked through it. He ended up becoming a salesperson up in Washington, selling medical devices, and the gentleman was a corpsman. He had never done sales in medical devices, but we broke down what his corpsman experience was, and he broke down, I remember Zimmer Biomet. This is the products that we got. So that's what I encourage everybody here that's on here is if you are interested in opportunities with Zimmer, my contact information is available. I am certainly on LinkedIn. Reach out to me. Let's talk about these positions, but also understand is please don't be stubborn. A lot of things that I say is to help you. I'm not trying to control the way you approach an interview. I'm not trying to control or the information you're trying to portray. I don't have to help you. That's the best thing that I tell candidates, but I certainly do it to help you succeed. So when I give my advice and my assistance, it is to help you get that position that you're looking for. And one of the things that I find is that those candidates who are a little bit more flexible tend to move on to that second interview, tend to get those hires. Just some of the experience that I've seen. I do have examples of resumes that I've gotten people hired in positions that have been successful. But the big thing is when you write your resume, make sure your contact information is available. Make sure I can read your name. Make sure I can call you. One of the things that I like to see is if this position is asking for this education, I don't want to see it at the bottom of the page. I want to see it right at the top of the page. If it says I need the certification for this position, I want to see that certification along with your education right up top. The first thing after that is if it requires this type of skill set, I want to see that skill set right above. I don't want to look for it. And reason why it's not that I'm lazy, it's just I have 100 other people applying for the same position. I have the same conversations that I have. So it's easier for me to look at that. I'll even encourage this. Sometimes I tell some candidates, go ahead and highlight the specific things on your resume that make you qualified for this position. Also, one of the things that I talk about is military transcripts that you have, some of the skills that you've got in schools that you've gone to. I was looking at the resume earlier, talking about OCS, it's leadership training. I know that already, but I know that the hiring manager does not. So that's something that I would put on there, highlight leadership training. That's something that I would put on there. Organizational skills, I would highlight in there. You could either highlight it. I know sometimes it would look, for me, I don't have an issue with it, but some people might. So I would italicize it, I would bold it, or even underline it if you want to use that instead. Like I said, people who've gone that extra mile that I've seen, I've had more success with, especially those that are not too impatient either. There is a process. Everything has a process. So just because you apply for something one day doesn't mean the next day you're going to get that call. Okay. For me, there's certain lag times specifically on the ATS. The ATS system doesn't always tell me that somebody has applied for a position. It doesn't give me that reminder. Okay. Other sites do, but our ATS system does not personally give me that reminder. So if I'm looking for a certain position that I'm going to fill, I'm going to look for those type of candidates. I'm going to look for certain keywords. One of the things also, if you're a veteran, put your branch of service in there. One of the things that I look for is United States. That's the first thing that I type in. United States Army, United States Navy, United States Marine Corps, United States Coast Guard. I use that as a search term every single time because I know that if it's United States anything, the next thing is going to be a service member. Not everybody does that, but I would certainly encourage you, if you want to put that as a search term, put United States and then put your branch of service that you're going through. And just a couple more things, and I'll turn it over to the team. But if you're trying to put your military experience, this is very important. I'm okay with you using some of the terms the military has, okay? And a lot of the hiring managers do too. Because if, say, for example, and I'll use this because I've seen this before, somebody puts, they were a parts expediter. Their job was to go to supply, pick up parts, and bring them back. Okay, that person is not supervising supply pickup or anything like that. That person is not managing that. That person is not coordinating any of that. Okay, so when you put those type of things, it like I said earlier, if you're lying on your resume and people find out and you get fired for it, that happens. I'd rather you tell me I was a parts expediter. As a parts expediter, my job was to go to supply, pick up parts, and bring them back. Simple as that. To me, works great. And also to the hiring managers, because a lot of times they don't fully understand or know what the military position was. But if you use a title that is very complicated and convoluted, I have a certain expectation. If I hear I'm a manager of this, I'm a supervisor of this, there's certain expectations I have. So if you're an E1 or E2 and you're a manager of anything, to me, I'm looking at it as, were you really the manager of that position? Okay, so I'm not the only one who's looking at it, but there's other people within the ATS, within and ATS is applicant tracking system. So I apologize for using that abbreviation for it. But a lot of the people who are hiring managers were in the military too, and they know what these positions are. Now, if they're curious, they might give you that call and say, hey, I saw that you were a parts expediter. Can you explain that position to me? Yes, I went to supply, I did this, I filled in requisitions. Oh, okay, you'd be a perfect position for this particular job. That happened to me as well. I was in Colorado. We had a gentleman. I mean, fortunately, I mean, I think it's awesome because he was a Marine, but he actually was I think he was we call it combat service support. He wears ground element. That's what he was doing. Okay. He was a great leader. He was a sergeant. Okay. He was a sergeant, had management experience, but the position that he applied for specifically, he did not have the specific skill set because they actually needed medical device experience to do it. But the hiring manager, because this person described exactly what it is that they did in their position, in their role as a sergeant, they were able to give him an alternate position, and they actually made that position just for them. And that's, some of the things that Zimmer does is just because you're coming in and you have a specific skill set doesn't mean we can't put you somewhere else. But I'd rather you be descriptive about what it is that you do as it relates to the positions that you're looking for. And those are just some of the things that my team does, because the team that I work with, they happen to be veterans too. One's Army, other one's Navy. I happen to be Marines, and we have an Air Force person working with as well. So a lot of us have that experience. And then the last thing I'll say before I turn it over to the team is, when you're putting on awards, understand is not all awards, to us, they're important. To hiring managers, they're not. Unless you're putting there that I got a Congressional Medal of Honor, a Navy Cross, or something of that nature. It's great that you got those awards, but they won't know what those are. Okay? And also make sure that you did receive that award that you're putting on your resume. Because when you're putting in that you've got a Navy Cross, an Air Cross, and a Bronze Star and a Silver Star, and we're looking at it like, wow, okay. Some of us will actually go and look up the citations and see if that's for real. And to me, it's just put less things on there to be scrutinized other than what the position requires you to do. That's what I would recommend, is if you're writing a resume, you're putting in for Zimmer, put in what the position requires you to do and experience. Put that on there, because that's what I'm looking for. Anything extra, I'm not really looking at it, or I'm scrutinizing it more than other resumes. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, no, that was great, Juan. That was really, really useful. So I've got multiple follow-up questions
Go ahead.
on all of that. First of all, are there any positions that you guys at Zimmer typically have open? And if so, are there any skill sets, when you're looking at a veteran's resume, are there any skill sets that you immediately gravitate to and think, awesome, I'm glad this person put this on there from the military experience, because we're always looking for that at Zimmer?
Yes. So I'll start first with I always see a recruiter, because I'm familiar with recruiters. Okay. If I see you're a recruiter in whatever branch of service you were, I always tell them, if I can convince somebody to be a Marine, I can sell anything. That's the way I kind of see it. Okay. Seriously, I do. So if you can convince somebody to be a soldier, to be an airman, to be a sailor, you're a great salesperson. So to me, if I see that, I am looking at it sales. I'm looking at not entry sales, either mid-level to high. I'm looking at a recruiter. I'm looking at that. I'm also looking, depending on the positions. Okay, I'm talking about this management-wise, not necessarily years of experience. And I'll explain it like this: if you just got out of the military and you got out as an E5, which is a sergeant position, or in most branches, or in the Marine Corps, in the Army, normally a sergeant would be an E5. Okay. So to me, I see it as entry-level mid-management. If I also look at the ranks, that is something that I look at, okay? And you just literally got out and you're looking for a director position, I'm not going to consider that, because I don't feel you have enough experience at the moment. But if you're an E7, okay, or E7 and above, or you're starting as a O3 and above, then I will consider that as very important. And the reason why I said is because we have a lot of production supervisors. You have manufacturing supervisors, okay? Those positions are typically mid-level to upper level, or upper level mid-management positions that we have. So I look at the ranks in regards to when considering what candidate would be a viable candidate for those positions, okay? That's very important. I also take into consideration, I was a sergeant, but I've been working as a manager for this amount of time, then that's a different story. I certainly look at it differently. Infantry, a lot of people knock on infantry a lot because they feel, well, infantry skills, how's that going to help me in a technical field? I was like, it's going to help you a lot, because infantry uses a lot of tech. whether it's night vision goggles that you do, close air support, calling close air support. You have to fix everything. And in Marine Corps, we call it semper gumby. You have to be flexible and be able to fix anything, okay?
Mhm.
Because nobody else is going to help you fix it. So how is that going to help you in a manufacturing setting? Well, because you can learn really quick. So don't limit yourself to, well, I'm a grunt, so if I'm a grunt, I have to do something manual. No, don't. If you apply for a tech position and I see that you're a grunt, I specifically go, what is your experience with technology? Tell me what you've done. Well, I've done this, this, and this. And even if they don't say to me, for example, they'll say, well, I never did anything with technology. I'm like, yes, you did, because you wore night vision goggles. You got close air support. You were dealing with different weapon systems and how you employ them. You're looking at ranges. Okay, all that is technical information that you use. So do not limit yourself to that. Now, some of the big ones that I look for is any type of, if you're looking at people who have worked on airframes or are working at motor teeth, for example. Okay, I'm looking for somebody like a metalsmith. A metalsmith is a very good trait to have, because a metalsmith has had experience working with CNC devices. Okay, programming. They've done because a lot of times when you manufacture a large panel, before they manufacture it, they have to cut it, they have to measure it. They work with micrometers. Okay, working with micrometers. They're also very, very familiar with corrosion control. That's another big thing. Okay, so metalsmiths, people who worked on airframes, I'm looking at those. Actually, at Zimmer, we hire a lot of aviation people from that career, because it's a very highly regulated industry, such as the medical industry is. So any type of aviation field is, I consider them for a lot of the tech positions that we have. So if you're coming from it doesn't matter which branch of service you come. If you come from an aviation field, I'm looking at those positions to fill in for a lot of the technical positions here at the medical ones that we have. Also, I'll talk about comptrollers and admin. Okay, so if you're a comptroller, you're managing budgets, you're managing accounts. If you're dealing with travel expenses, okay, you have to be able to use Excel. You have to be able to use government sites in order for you to take into the budget that you get. In the Marine Corps, we call them green dollars and blue dollars, because we had the green dollars that we use, the Marine Corps provides, and blue dollars that the Navy has. Each one of them had their own pot of money that it comes from, own individual website that it comes from, that we had to track. So that means you're able to use other websites. You're able to use programs such as Excel, Microsoft Office, and admin, okay? And I'll talk about leadership roles, especially some of the management roles that we're looking at. If I look at, say I'm hiring right now, we have a director of sales. Okay, we have a director of sales, and I have somebody that's applying to that position. If they're coming straight out of the military, I'm looking at their rank. First thing I'm looking at is their rank. How senior have they been? And I also look at what type of careers they come from. Okay, if you worked in logistics is a very important one too, because in logistics, you're doing a lot of the planning of things that are going on. Supply, both S4 and S3. We call it the supply and the logistics field, the S4 and the S3. Okay, so when I look at those two, you're dealing with you're doing liaison. You're liaison with outside entities. Okay, that's a big thing. You're looking at negotiating contracts. That's a big part. That's a big part of that. When you become a contract specialist in the military, okay, because we're looking at 3-bid process that the military normally does. Okay, and they're looking at the lowest bid. It's not any different in the civilian world. Okay, still the same process. You still go through the bid process. So if you're familiar with that, you come from either logistics or you're a comptroller or come from finance. I'm looking at, they may not have, because sometimes our positions will require somebody that is a example, okay, or may not require a CPA, but they've had experience doing financials, okay, and working with those type of spreadsheets that they're looking at, and company, say the balance sheet, company financial statements. That's what it is. So if you have comptroller finance experience and you've done it for a couple of years, and say you're an E6 in that role, I will consider you, and I will present you to the hiring manager in that case. Okay, and I'll leave it off with one more. Is virtual positions are very important. So if you come from the S6 or the IT area, okay, get your certifications. If you haven't already gotten them, get your certifications, because those are equivalent for what we do. So a lot of times when I'm looking for an IT person, who's done video, for example. I know in the military, our IT guy did everything, or IT gal. We had both. They did everything. Okay. Whenever something broke, I wasn't going to fix it because I didn't know how to fix it, or I wasn't allowed to touch it. So I would say, hey, call the IT person, come down here so they can come fix it. So we know that they have that experience. So there's very few roles in the military that I feel we cannot translate over. But just to kind of summarize some of those roles, for leadership, I'm looking for infantry officers or infantry, either staff NCOs or senior NCOs. That's what I'm looking for. For production, anything with manufacturing, I'm looking for people in the aviation industry and motor T. I'm looking for mechanics. Okay, I'm looking for people who have actually had hands-on doing that type of experience. Okay, for finance, I'm looking for comptrollers. I'm looking for anybody in finance. For HR roles, I'm looking for anybody, and I know the Army has specific HR role. I'm looking for either HR or admin people in the military that I've seen. I even look for JAG officers or the Judge Advocate Corps, because we do have legal counsel positions that we have. A lot of what we do, since we're an international company, we're looking for a lot of times JAG officers have dealt with international law. So that's just to summarize, those are some of the roles that I'm looking for to answer your question.
Awesome. So a couple of things I want to hit on there. One, I'm going to keep this somewhat brief, so feel free to jump in if I misspeak on any of this. Mm-hmm. But the first thing I want to point out is that Zimmer Biomet we would classify as a manufacturing industry employer, right? But you just called out probably 5 different skill sets outside of what people normally think of in manufacturing, right? And that's one thing that I definitely didn't know or consider when I left the military 5 years ago. If you had told me manufacturing, I'm assuming assembly line worker, right? Production associate. I'm not assuming that I can use any of my other skill sets at that company, and it's just definitely not the case. And then the second thing is that when you actually do go into some of these manufacturing facilities, it struck me, and I was a former infantry guy for all 5 years I was in, and it struck me as one of the most similar environments to the infantry that I had found anywhere, in a manufacturing setting, right? Because just like the infantry, or really any other probably MOS within the military, you've got your SOPs, you've got your procedures, but that's not usually what actually happens, right? If everything was perfect, everything would go step by step exactly like the book. But really, what your task is to master those SOPs and apply those to the task, to your day, to get the desired outcome. And so in a perfect scenario, in a manufacturing environment, everything goes exactly according to plan, but there's a lot of troubleshooting of, making sure that everything's maintained, making sure everyone's trained, hey, these 3 guys didn't show up to work today. How are we going to adjust? How are we going to flex to make sure that we're still hitting all of our outcomes in that day? It's a lot of it's very high tech. I know especially in the healthcare and the life sciences manufacturing sector, a lot of it's very high tech, very high precision. It's just a different environment than what a lot of folks recognize. And for those that don't know, it looks like we might have just lost Juan. So Zimmer, like he said, has locations all over the world, but here in Indiana, their corporate headquarters is in Warsaw, Indiana. So I think it's roughly maybe 40 minutes outside of Fort Wayne. Yeah, so it's a relatively rural community. It's a company where you can make good money at a very low cost of living. Great school systems. They put a lot of money back into the local economy, back into the trying to make it a great place for their employees to live. It's not that far from Indianapolis, so it's kind of what Blaine was talking about. It's a great combination of place where you can make some real money. And live comfortably and raise your family in a great environment. Something else. So real quick, one last thing I wanted to go through. I want to see if you could walk us through kind of start to finish what the job application process looks like from your perspective, and then what the general time frame is. So from the moment that a job posting goes up on Indeed or on our website or wherever it goes up, what's the next step, generally speaking?
So the next step is can you hear me okay? I just want to,
yes.
I was bounced out twice, so I want to make sure I'm still good. So the next step is going to be a couple of things will happen. We have a team that we work with. They're called client relations managers, and their job is to monitor the ATS, or the applicant tracking system. Depending on the open positions, they'll get a reminder saying, hey, such and such has applied for this position. And that's if you're going to the applicant tracking system. Okay. You apply for a position, it goes to the applicant tracking system. Your resume is pinged. Somebody's looking at it. And like I said, they're looking at it for maybe a minute at most. If they determine to go through the next step, okay, a couple of things, and I'll give you another pathway, but I'll give this one real quick. So they'll determine, okay, this is a veteran candidate. We need to have a veteran or a candidate, a military evaluation is what they call. So then they'll call me and I'll do the veteran evaluation. And normally, as soon as I get it, I send it out. I don't like holding on to them because I hate wasting time. So within a day of you applying and they ping that resume, I say probably by the next day, the decision's already made whether they're going to move on to the next step or not. So it takes about a day or two at most. And that's if you are qualified and they move you on to the next step. So that week that you're working with, the hiring manager is at a minimum is going to get 3 applicants to look at. Okay. So don't expect a call that week, expect a call the next week. But once the hiring manager calls you, you're looking at about, it'll take you anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks for you to end up in that position. If you are qualified, best case scenario, that's what I'm talking about. If you go in, you have the qualifications they're looking for, you're in the area, composition, everything is okay. Looking at a 3 weeks time. Once they come on, you have about a week of onboarding. So total would be about a month for best case scenario going through the system. Now, that's normally average. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen quicker than that, because sometimes it will, depending on the need of the position, if there's specific hot fill. But on average, it'll take about a month to go through. I entered my application, I went through the screening, I went through the interview, and I got hired. So it'll take about a month before you start.
So how far out would you recommend somebody apply? If they know they're separating from the military in 3 months, should they wait until they're a month out?
I would say 60 days prior to you getting out.
Okay.
I give it that at least, because if you come in 90 days, if you're waiting for that month, I can wiggle about 2 months, but some people are gonna come in earlier than you, depending on how fast that position needs to be filled. So 60 days, it gives you, they'll wait a month for you. I think that's been my experience. They'll wait a month for you to come back to get out and get started. Because you also, if you're relocating to Indiana, you also have to find a place to live. You also have to move your family and everything. So I would say about 60 days. I think the 90th day would be the good time to start looking.
Okay. So speaking of that, if somebody is interested in pursuing a career at Zimmer Biomet, I know you guys have a military specific landing page on your career site on Zimmer itself. As far as our website goes, we've got, we're currently moving employers just like yourself over to our new website. So probably have your profile on our site up in the next week or so. Is there anything else that we should know about the website or the application process?
Yes. So a couple things that are going to be added to our website. Okay. Our CEO is making, there's already a large commitment to it, but he's doing a written commitment to attracting, hiring, and keeping veteran talent. So expect his, or their personally signed letter coming out, which is very important because it'll certainly increase the amount of opportunities that will be available to vets. Now, on our application tracking system, and when you apply to the application, one of the things that we're going to be added, and it's called ONET. If people are not familiar with it, please look it up. With ONET, it's going to help you translate your military skills that you have, or MOS. It's another tool that you can use so that you can write your resume and you can apply to those positions to see if you are qualified for those positions. So ONET will be pasted under, and it will allow you to self-identify yourself as a veteran. I really encourage those who are applying to take advantage of that. And if it tells you to self-identify as a veteran, please do. And the reason for that is because we are looking to hire more veterans. So the only way for us to know if there's veterans, if they tell us they're veterans. You don't have to do it, but I recommend that you do, because it'll certainly improve your opportunities or chances of getting that the hiring manager to do that initial interview for you.
Awesome. Well, Juan, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. We will make sure that everyone gets your contact info, and I encourage everybody to connect with him on LinkedIn as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. You should be getting an email from us here within the next 24 hours or so with a recording to this. And please feel free to reach out to Blaine, myself, Juan, any of our team. I know we've been going, and a few of them active in the chat throughout the whole time. We're here to help, here to answer any questions we can, and here to help you start your career in Indiana. So thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.